North Melbourne and Essendon are none the wiser tonight as to Alistair Clarkson's decision, while the man he could replace, Ben Rutten, is preparing the Bombers to play Richmond on Saturday night. There is a growing chorus slamming the way Essendon have handled an unforgettable few days.
The one thing you want in our industry is respect, and I don't think Ben's been afforded that. I think it's been pretty poor how he's been treated.
What I do empathise with is the human element. It's a tough situation, but that's the capability. We sort of know it. It's unfortunate in nature, but what we care about is the person, and we hope Ben himself is doing okay.
Been a bit sad the way that he's had to wear this, and it's been hard for the players, and I know I've felt for him. For me, there's probably an element of frustration. I know throughout my career, I've craved a bit of stability and a settled footy club, and unfortunately that doesn't seem to be that way at the moment.
The club has gone nowhere for so long. The culture isn't good. There's a lot of unhappy people, and you can see the way in the performance. It's not travelling well.
He's in an impossible situation. Once you start to pursue the next coach, that's the vote of no confidence in the man who's in the chair.
The Kangaroos, and thus Essendon, will know by the weekend what Alistair Clarkson will be doing next year. It's a really big decision for these two football clubs. It defines both of them for the next 5, 10, 15 years.
If Alistair Clarkson was a fair way down the track with North Melbourne, I'd be very surprised if he did a backflip.
We're pretty confident we'll know something by the end of the weekend, and we're really happy with the way things are going. We think we've presented well to him, he's presented well to us, and we understand where each other's at, and we'll see how that plays out.
I'd prefer to be able to get off the back page. I know full well that this circus will all end once I can make a decision one way or the other, so the sooner I can do that, the better.
Yes, the circus does continue until Alistair Clarkson does announce that decision. Geordie, we, like many others, don't know what exactly Alistair Clarkson's thinking, but what we do know is all of a sudden North Melbourne looked the more stable club, but then you have the lure of a powerhouse club in Essendon. Where are you leaning towards?
It is difficult, and I think he's well within his rights to take his time to make the decision, and it's just unfortunate for him and for other clubs that we as the media want an answer straight away, and that just builds pressure. It builds a lot more media scrutiny around the decision. I would find it hard to think that he hasn't made his decision already. He's been thinking about this for a long time, probably all year, having an eye on a few sides, understanding the opportunity. The way that he spoke about Ben Rutten at the airport and how he feels for Ben Rutten, a senior coach who has still got a year to run on his contract, to speak like that and then to accept a job at that football club, I think would be really difficult. And backing up what the coaches were saying before, I think it's been disgraceful how Essendon have dealt with this situation and Bet Rutten. If I was a player at that football club and you're sitting back and you're members and supporters and you've watched this football club for 10 years and you wonder why their performance is like this on field, well, look at the last week. It's a club that is so unstable, and if I was a player at that football club, you'd nearly want to walk out because the way that they've treated a coach that's been there for 2 years. 2 years. What coach would come in and win a premiership within 2 years? It took Alistair 3 years, but then the real success came 9 years later. Damien Hardwick, 6 years. I just think it's been a terrible week for that football club.
Yeah, that's big. That's a big statement. I mean, I think it's been part. Like, there's been parts of everything in what Essendon have done. I think it's been disrespectful to Ben Rutten, but we know that no one person is bigger than the greater good for a football club. And so I think when you look at what they've done, you have to call what they've done bold and courageous and disrespectful and ruthless. I think it's a combination of all of those things. So what were Essendon meant to do if there was a large number of board members that after the internal review that wasn't really a proper review, were they meant to just sit on their hands if they genuinely felt that they had an opportunity to upgrade their prospects? So I get the sentiment around Ben Rutten, and no one likes to see this happen to good football people. And Ben Rutten has handled himself with absolute class, but the AFL is a ruthless world and it waits for no one. So were they meant to sit on their hands? Or is what they've done actually what they should be doing for their members and for their supporters?
What would happen if the board and the major figureheads around that football club said, no, we're going to back him in. How we work through that, well, once the season finishes, we will have to work through a lot of information that we might gather from players. But hey, this is our person we've selected. He's 2 years into the tenure. If we want to be united as a football club, let's back in the decision that we've made. It's like what you said, one person isn't responsible. So for Alistair to come in and solve all their issues, it's going to be impossible.
Do you think it's still an option Ben Rutten could coach next year?
Oh, why would he want to? Why would you want to be at a football club that that all this week has tried to, as you said, upgrade him? It's hard to say it's not an upgrade because of Alistair's previous history, but why would you want to be at a football club that is?
Yeah, I don't think he can. I don't think he can be there next year. And
but there has to be a plan B, doesn't there?
Well, there has to be. There has to be a plan B because if it's not Alistair Clarkson, I don't. It's untenable for Ben Rutten. Even if Alistair is announced tomorrow, well then, how can Ben Rutten coach this week, knowing that he's already been replaced? So it's a really unfortunate situation to have found themselves in. And I think if we're going to criticise anything, it should be the fact that they did the review and it was clearly a half-baked review that not everyone was on board with anyway. So when that initial finding was handed down, that's when it should have come to a head. Yeah. Not now. So then the conversations could have occurred, behind closed doors. Sometimes these things get out, but yeah, I think it's too simplistic to say it's an absolute disgrace because they are representing the members in trying to do what they think will give them the best opportunity to win a flag.
But it's been 10 years of the same decisions, the same knee-jerk
So maybe
reactions,
exactly. So maybe enough's enough.
Well, Zach Merritt was telling on 360 this week when he said, this is why I put out my contract talks last year, because I wanted to be at a stable club and look where they are 12 months on. You say, Geordie, you would be willing to leave that club if you were part of Essendon right now in the way that they've handled it the last few days. How do you go as a player on Saturday night now, trying to play Richmond and somewhat redeem yourself for the performance you all put in on Sunday?
Yeah, so I feel for Michael Hurley. So after everything that had gone on and in terms of the saga, then it was all about how do you build up trust within the playing group. Yet he comes to his final game this weekend and he says, all I wanted as a player was to go to a football club that had stability. And he never got that. That's pretty sad.
It is. But you must be even more grateful for the time you had as a player. And
that's when you realise, and you might not realise it at the time, but once you finish your career and understand that you didn't have much change.
You take it for granted when you're in it, and then you don't know any better until it smacks you in the face, which was the case for me a few times, and it hits hard.